Hi everyone, welcome back to Numinosophy Academy. I'm Lewis. Welcome to this 1,000 subscriber Q&A special. You know, there's definitely something very odd about the fact that here I am, a British guy in Suffolk making videos for YouTube, and my audience is primarily, because I've looked at the statistics, people from Utah, which can only be explained by the fact that my audience is primarily made up of people within the ex-Mormon community, because, of course, the majority of my videos are on Mormonism, on aspects to do with Mormonism. So we have this Q&A episode for you today, in which I'm answering various questions, questions that have been sent to me directly from you guys, and questions that I have gleaned from the comment sections of my videos, and of course the question I get asked more than any other, which I'll be answering towards the end, why Mormonism? Why do you make videos about Mormonism given that you have no history as a Mormon, given that you've never been a member? So I will also be getting onto that. So without any further ado, let us begin. Okay, dinner with 3 people, alive or dead. Who would you pick and why? Okay, so first of all, behind me, you've probably seen this in the background of many of my videos. This is my master's degree certificate in Jungian and post-Jungian studies. So Jungian is a reference to Carl Jung, who is the Swiss psychiatrist. So, although I make all these videos on YouTube about Joseph Smith, the person I've actually done most academic work on is Carl Jung. So, to answer this question, 3 people alive or dead who I would pick, Carl Jung would just have to be first on that list. I would definitely want to pick his brains, even receive analytical therapy analysis from Carl Jung himself. I don't think anything could beat that interaction. Let's think. Number 2, I'm very interested in the American Transcendentalist movement, and the kind of father of that movement was Ralph Waldo Emerson, the kind of father of American literature and culture in different ways. So I find him a very interesting and compelling figure, so I would definitely pick him. And number 3, well, I got to go with Joseph Smith, don't I, on my channel. I think, the 4 of us would have some, very interesting and in-depth conversations that I would definitely want to be a part of. Favorite cheese? Okay, a bit of a random question. Mature cheddar is always good, but I'd have to go Manchego. If you don't know what I'm talking about, do yourself a favor, buy yourself some Manchego cheese. Okay, here's a question I get quite a lot in different forms. Are you a Christian? Are you religious? And so forth. The short answer is yes, I am. The long answer would take me quite a while to unpack. My first degree was actually in theology. So, this is a question I have put a lot of time and energy into. So, again, very basically, I would describe myself as a liberal Christian. The trouble is, both of those words, liberal and Christian, are, of course, incredibly loaded and will, bring up a whole assortment of associations depending on who you are and what your background is. They're both words, I suppose, that people really kind of war over. So like the term Christian, well, according to some, Christian denominations, that means something very specific, right? They have a particular kind of set of theological criteria that you have to meet in order to qualify as a Christian, if you like. I certainly wouldn't meet those qualifications. And, of course, that's also the case with liberal. Liberal is one of those words that can be very thorny, I think. I think even the association that people have with the word liberal varies on both sides of the pond. I think people think about the word liberal in the United Kingdom slightly differently to how they do in America, which is to say, my sense is that it often has much more negative connotations in the United States. It brings to mind for me, like, McCarthyism, goddamn liberal commies, that kind of thing. In this context, though, the term liberal Christian, the liberal part there, I think, could either mean social liberalism, or it could mean theological liberalism. So the social liberalism is perhaps the more obvious one. I think that kind of refers to affirming women in ministry, being pro-gay marriage, kind of just basically affirming individual liberty. And broadly speaking, I would agree with all that. Although, I don't know where my reservations would come in. I think the kind of social justice movement, as it has kind of progressed and moved on, has transformed into something a little bit more problematic, a little bit more toxic, even. And I think it is kind of strayed as a movement away from its initial objectives, which, this is a huge topic area, which I'm not going to get into, but, so, I have a conflicted relationship with the social justice movement. Let's put it that way. The other way of framing this is theological liberalism. Theological liberalism also could be understood in many different ways. My understanding would be basically approaching the Bible or reading the Bible in a critical way, which is to say, reading the Bible through the lens of history, science, philosophy, psychology, and allowing all those disciplines to inform our reading. And that kind of entails treating the Bible less like a rule book and more like a dialogue partner. It does seem that some people are able to approach the Bible in this way and maintain an Orthodox Christian faith. And that baffles me, basically. I kind of feel that if you are, open in your intellectual pursuits, open in your, kind of wandering across the landscape of ideas, you cannot help kind of straying beyond the bounds of Christian orthodoxy. And, to that end, I very much proudly wear my dissenter or heresy badge. But nonetheless, I would still very much identify as a Christian. And the reason, quite simply, for that is in my own spiritual worldview, front and center is the figure of Jesus, the life, the work, and the example of Jesus. Which is not to say, of course, that I have not been influenced by many other religious and spiritual traditions. Jungian psychology, as I've mentioned, in as far as that can be thought of as a spiritual movement. Also, the New Age movement has been very influential. Blavatsky, Steiner, Swedenborg, the Transcendentalists, as I've mentioned, Emerson, Thoreau, and on I could go. Hogwarts house. Slytherin. Slytherin all the way. In terms of the, online personality testing you can do, Slytherin, and self-declared Slytherin. And, I wear my colours proudly. Accent question. So I think probably, to my American audience, I probably just sound British or English. But to people in England, I definitely do not sound English. And, you know, my accent is actually quite a mixed bag. So I was born in Glasgow, Scotland. So some of that kind of Scottish twang comes through. But when I was very young, 6, 7, I actually moved to Houston, Texas, to Katy specifically, where I lived for 4 or 5 years. And that also kind of played into my accent. And then after that, an English boarding school, you know, again, Hogwarts, very Hogwarts reminiscent. and so, you know, this is the accent I ended up with. But yeah, it's definitely given me a lifelong love of America, actually. You know, in America, people describe themselves as being Anglophiles, right? Meaning that they're in love with all things English. Well, I am very much an American file and, you know, long for the day that I could even come and live in the United States. And hopefully that day is sooner than later, but we will see. Fictional character. So yeah, this actually allows me to answer 2 questions in one. My favorite book and my favorite fictional character. My favorite book is The Catcher in the Rye, and so my favorite character is Holden Caulfield. Why? Well, you know, obviously a kind of central theme of the book is the kind of phoniness of reality, of the way people live their lives, that they're always kind of living through these kind of false masks and false personas. And definitely a younger me was very conscious of that, and I guess very frustrated by that. And so I've always identified with that idea. Interest in Mormonism, even though you have never been a member. So, right, where to begin with this? Okay, so as I said, I studied theology and then subsequently studied analytical psychology. And I've always been interested in fringe beliefs. And, you know, Mormonism is an interesting fringe belief because, you know, it's on the kind of most outer peripheries of Christianity. And yet, you know, within Utah, it's kind of very kind of mainstream within American culture. So it's kind of, you know, it straddles 2 extremes. And that makes it very interesting. I think, you know, exploring extreme beliefs is a way of kind of getting at the human condition, I suppose. You know, what are people able to justify to themselves? You know, what worlds are they able to inhabit and that work for them, that they find to be constructive? Because obviously, you know, even if you're an ex-Mormon and you've now, you know, fallen out with Mormonism and are now in even a kind of oppositional position in regards to Mormonism, there's obviously a lot of people that are still members of the LDS Church that, you know, it does work for them. Yeah, it does, you know, conform to the way the world shows up to them. It makes sense to them. And I find that interesting because that, to me, says something about the human condition. And therefore, it says something about me as well, right? Because, you know, it shows that, you know, worldviews of this kind, it's possible to inhabit them and for that to make sense of the world. I suppose also, though, I kind of just ended up here as a bit of a fluke, really. I, you know, made many videos on my channel on various topics before and, you know, eventually came to Mormonism, made a few videos, but people found them really interesting and really helpful. And so I made some more, and then I made some more, and then I made some more. And so I've ended up in this place of being a, you know, someone that's obviously never had any relationship with Mormonism whatsoever, and yet is commenting on Mormonism. And I think that can be very kind of cathartic for people that are have left the church, because it allows them to hear a kind of, non-emotionally affected kind of outsider give their take and their perspective on Mormonism, which I've definitely found, evidenced by the comment section in particular, that has been very helpful for some people. Okay, I think that is it. That was my final question. So thanks everyone for staying with us to the end. Thanks in particular to my Patreon supporters. Cheers again. If you haven't done so already, please do like this video and subscribe, because I will certainly have more Mormon videos coming up just around the corner. So cheers again, and I will see you in the next one.